The safe clicked open, and my sister's hand was already inside it, pulling out documents like I was never coming back. She didn't even flinch when she heard the recording device turn on. They thought I was still lying in a hospital bed, barely aware, still in recovery after the crash that nearly killed me 6 months ago. Instead, I was watching everything through the live feed from my private study. My own family, my sister, my uncle, and my cousin were standing around my safe, calmly dividing my fortune like it was already theirs. "This portion is liquid assets," my uncle said, tapping the papers. "We move it before any legal review wakes him up." They were talking about me like I was already gone. Like my life's work, everything I built from nothing was just an estate waiting to be split. Then the door behind them creaked open. Not one of them turned around, because the voice that spoke next wasn't supposed to be in that room at all. Interesting. I didn't authorize any of this. Before we continue with this video, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Aiden's voice didn't just cut through the room, it froze it. My sister's hand stopped halfway inside my safe. My uncle didn't even breathe. My cousin's eyes locked on the doorway like he had just seen a ghost that knew his full name. "I didn't authorize any of this." The words came again, slower this time, calmer but heavier. The kind of calm that doesn't ask questions, it answers them. And standing in that doorway was me, Aiden Kessler, 36, founder of Kessler Dynamics, the man they all believed was still lying in a hospital bed, barely conscious after a crash that shattered my body and, in their minds, my future. But I wasn't in a hospital. I was standing in the exact place they thought I would never stand again, my private study, just behind them, watching every illegal second they spent inside my safe. My uncle slowly turned first. His face tried to assemble confidence, but it collapsed halfway. "Aiden, you're supposed to be in recovery?" I finished for him. My sister stepped back from the safe so quickly she nearly dropped the files. "We were just organizing." "Stop," I said. One word. That was enough. The room tightened. Even the air felt like it had stopped moving. My cousin looked between all of us like he was trying to find an exit that didn't exist anymore. Because what they didn't know, what they never bothered to check, was that recovery doesn't always mean weakness. Sometimes it means watching, learning, recording everything. And behind me, the door didn't just close, it locked automatically from the outside. The silence that followed wasn't confusion anymore, it was panic, trying to disguise itself as reason. My uncle forced a short laugh. Stepping away from the safe-like distance could erase evidence. "Aiden, listen, you're misunderstanding what you're seeing." I didn't move, because I had already seen everything. Every file they touched, every document they lifted, every second they thought no one was watching. My sister's eyes flicked to me, searching for the version of me they remembered, the version they believed was fragile, recovering, dependent. She didn't find him. What is this?" she finally whispered. "That's the problem," I said quietly. "You thought I wasn't here to answer that question." My cousin backed into the desk, knocking over a stack of legal folders. None of them bent to pick it up, because the room no longer belonged to them. It belonged to the truth they had already stepped into. Then footsteps sounded again behind me. Slower, controlled, familiar in a way that made my uncle's expression change instantly. And a second later, my lawyer stepped into view, holding a sealed envelope. "Mr. Kessler," he said, eyes locked on the safe, "they've already triggered the secondary authorization protocol." My sister went pale, because that was the first time any of them realized this wasn't just a visit. It was already a case, and the envelope in his hand had their names on it. My uncle's voice cracked just slightly when he tried to take control back. "Secondary authorization? Aiden, you can't seriously be turning this into..." "Into what?" I interrupted. That's when I finally stepped fully into the room. Not closer, not louder, just present. And that was worse, because now they could see it clearly. The safe wasn't the only thing they had touched. The files on the table, the access logs on the screen behind them, even the faint red indicator light above the bookshelf, all of it was active. Recording. My lawyer didn't rush. He placed the sealed envelope on the desk like it weighed more than gold. "It was delivered this morning," he said, "directly under Mr. Kessler's instruction." My sister swallowed hard. He was in recovery. He couldn't have... I looked at her, and she stopped talking mid-sentence, because she remembered something she didn't want to admit out loud. The legal updates, the signatures. she never questioned. The brief moments of clarity they assumed were medical confusion. My cousin tried to slip toward the door. It didn't open. Locked. Automatically. My uncle finally turned fully toward me, anger breaking through fear. If this is about the safe, we were protecting assets. You were incapacitated. No, I said, cutting him off. Then I nodded slightly toward the lawyer. Open it. The room tightened again as the seal on the envelope started to tear. And for the first time, my sister spoke my name like she wasn't sure I deserved it anymore. Aiden, what did you do? The envelope didn't open immediately. My lawyer paused just long enough for the tension to become unbearable. Not because he hesitated, but because he wanted them to feel the weight of that moment. My uncle shifted forward, voice lower now, controlled but strained. Whatever is inside that, it doesn't change the fact we were acting in good faith. I let out a small, almost humorless breath. Good faith? I repeated. My sister flinched at my tone. Because it wasn't anger, it was disappointment that had already finished processing the betrayal. The lawyer finally broke the seal. The sound was soft. But in that room, it felt like something irreversible, snapping into place. He pulled out the first document and placed it flat on the desk. My cousin leaned in without thinking, then stopped when he read the header. Updated trust structure. Full executive control reassignment. My uncle's face changed instantly. That's not possible. I have partial oversight rights during recovery. You had them, the lawyer corrected calmly. He slid another page forward. Access logs. Time-stamped entries. Safe breach authorization triggers. My sister shook her head slightly, like she could deny what her eyes were seeing. We didn't break in. We had access codes. Unauthorized access, the lawyer said again, sharper this time, is still unauthorized. Then he turned one final page. And that's when the room went completely still. Because underneath everything was a recorded authorization from me. Dated. Signed. Valid. Long before they ever stepped into this room, my uncle stared at it like the paper had betrayed him personally. This has to be staged. I finally stepped closer to the desk and lowered my voice. No, I said. You just assumed I'd never wake up long enough to plan for you. My sister's breath broke as she looked between the document and me. Then she whispered something that didn't sound like denial anymore. It sounded like fear finally catching up. When did you start watching us? The question hung in the air like something none of them actually wanted answered. My sister's voice wasn't loud, but it trembled in a way I had never heard before. When did you start watching us? I didn't answer immediately, because the truth wasn't simple. It wasn't a single moment. It was the first time they stopped calling my recovery care and started calling it control. My lawyer stepped forward instead, placing a thin black folder on top of the trust documents. 6 months ago, he said calmly, Mr. Kessler authorized discreet monitoring after irregular financial access attempts were detected during his medical incapacitation period. My uncle's face tightened. That's ridiculous. We didn't touch anything before today. The lawyer didn't argue. He simply turned the folder toward them. Inside were timestamps, login attempts, access pings, not just today. Earlier, multiple times. My cousin stepped back like the floor had shifted under him. No, I didn't. I never. You did, I said quietly. Not accusing, confirming. That silence hit harder than shouting ever could. My sister suddenly looked at me differently now. Not like a patient, not like someone fragile, but like someone she had misjudged in a way that couldn't be undone. My uncle tried one last push, forcing control into his voice. Even if that's true, you're still sitting on millions while we're being treated like criminals over family concern. I cut him off. Family concern doesn't open safes in the middle of the night. The lawyer tapped the final page in the folder. And it doesn't trigger financial diversion protocols either. That word landed heavier than anything else. Diversion? My sister's eyes flicked to me immediately. No, she whispered. We didn't divert anything. My lawyer looked at her for the first time directly and said, then you won't mind if we check what was transferred an hour ago. The room went dead silent because none of them had realized yet. The system was already running without their permission. My sister's lips parted, but no sound came out because that sentence didn't sound like a warning anymore. It sounded like confirmation of something already done. My uncle stepped forward quickly, reaching for the papers like he could physically undo what had been said. Check what transferred. There was no transfer. We didn't complete anything. My lawyer raised one hand. Not aggressively, just enough. And the wall-mounted screen behind the desk lit up. A live financial dashboard appeared. My company's holdings, trust accounts, asset movement logs, and one highlighted line in red. My cousin froze. That wasn't there before. It was, I said quietly. You just weren't looking at it from the right side. The timestamp on the screen showed it clearly. Unauthorized restructuring attempt detected 58 minutes ago. My sister stumbled back a step. No, we were just dividing. We didn't actually move anything. The lawyer turned slightly toward her. That's the point, he said. You tried. My uncle's face tightened into something between anger and panic. Attempting isn't the same as execution. You can't accuse us of theft over paperwork on a table. I took one step closer to the desk. Now they were all looking at me again. Not the safe. Not the documents. Me. You broke into a locked estate safe, I said slowly. You accessed restricted files. You attempted division of assets under medical incapacity status. Each sentence made the room smaller. My sister whispered, we thought you weren't aware. That hit differently, because it wasn't a defense, it was an admission. The lawyer picked up the sealed envelope again, now empty, and placed it aside. Then he said the part that changed everything. Mr. Kessler was never legally inactive. My uncle blinked. That's impossible. The hospital records were medical, the lawyer cut in, not legal. A long silence followed. Then the lawyer added one final line, calm as ever. And your names are already attached to the escalation filing. My cousin whispered, barely audible. What does that mean? I answered before the lawyer could. It means, I said, you're no longer inside my safe. I looked at each of them. One of you just walked into my evidence. And the screen behind them refreshed again. New alert. External authority access initiated.